Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Wednesday edition of Drivin with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met. Today is Wednesday, February the 5th, and a couple of things have gone on in the last 48 hours. I was unable to record a video yesterday morning, and that kind of works out for the best because I've got two big pieces to talk about today. And there's also a third piece that I want to discuss as well. So we'll do that. Talk about the Dodgers' big trade, talk about the big Mets news, and talk about a piece that I think the Mets should think about adding, not named Steve Cohen. And I'll do all of that on today's show. So let's start with the first bit of news that broke yesterday afternoon. And we started to hear some rumblings. I think it was Mike Puma who first reported this, about Steve Cohen, that there were some issues between Cohen and the Wilpons, some contract terms or some negotiation points, whatever, that there was some turmoil there, and there was a chance, and remains a chance, that the sale may not go through as expected. That being said, here's the reality of the situation. There is a non-disclosure agreement in place, so neither side is able to discuss anything in depth, which is why the Mets put out that, the Mets meaning the Wilpons, put out that ridiculously bogus press release last night that said there's some stuff going on, but we can't tell you. That was the gist of it in 3 paragraphs. The bottom line here is, until this either completely falls apart or goes through, we're not going to know any more detail. And because of the NDA, we may never know the details, because a non-disclosure agreement is binding. I mean, you can't disclose anything ever. That's the terms, for the most part, of a non-disclosure agreement. So for anybody to be speculating that the sky is falling and assuming they know what's going on, nobody knows everything that's going on right now with Cohen and the Wilpons. The reality is, the Wilpons clearly need the money. That's why they're selling the team. Cohen's got the money. I still think this deal will go down and go through, but it might not look the same way, and it might not happen right away. So let's try to be cautiously optimistic, which is how I'm looking at this, which is probably foolish as a Mets fan, but I'm still trying to keep an edge of optimism as it pertains to Mets ownership in the next few years. Speaking of optimism, this one goes from this is a potential guy the Mets could target to not a chance. Last night, the Los Angeles Dodgers finalized a trade. It ended up being a 3-team trade with the Boston Red Sox, and the third team being the Minnesota Twins. And the rich get richer. The Dodgers end up acquiring one of the best players in baseball, Mookie Betts, from the Red Sox. In a move that basically reeks of desperation, this is the Dodgers saying, we have to win the World Series. We just have to. They will literally do anything it takes at this point, outside of cheating maybe, but we'll see. So the Dodgers get Mookie Betts, and in the process they also have to take on David Price and his outrageous contract, which the Red Sox never should have given him. In return, the Red Sox get 2 prospects. They get from the Dodgers, well, actually, I guess it's only 1 prospect at this point. From the Dodgers, they get Alex Verdugo, who we got to see a little bit last year. Really, really good, promising young player. They also get this right-handed pitcher from Minnesota, whose name escapes me. It was something like Granson Burgess or something. I don't know. He's the number 83 prospect in MLB's top 100 list. And the third team in the mix, the Twins, they end up getting Kenta Maeda from the Dodgers. So that's great for Maeda, who I think has wanted to be a starter for the last 2 years, but there's never really been room for him in the rotation with the Dodgers. So Maeda ends up in Minnesota, where he will more than likely get a shot at being a starting pitcher there. Not long after this deal was executed, the Dodgers traded Jock Peterson to their crosstown rivals, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, in return for an infielder whose name again escapes me. So the Dodgers pulling off the big trade, the Red Sox doing what Chaim Bloom does, tearing down. And this is why I was always hesitant about Chaim Bloom coming to the Mets. And this is not going to work out for Bloom in the long run. If you look at the track record of the Dodgers general managers, they don't last very long, and it's because it's a very much a what have you done for me lately town, very much like New York, very much like Philadelphia. They can run guys out of town if they're not happy, and the Red Sox are not going to be good this year. They're just not. They're going to finish third in the division at best. So Bloom's the stain of Chaim Bloom, although it's probably the right move for the franchise in the long run, he's not going to be there to benefit from it. They're going to end up firing him in the next 3 to 4 years. It's just what's going to happen. Ownership is too involved with the Red Sox. Again, just like with the Mets, just like with the Yankees, just like with the Phillies, just like with all these big market teams who mingle and tinker and get too involved in the day-to-day operations of their teams, and they listen to what the fans say, and that's part of the problem here, because again, this is probably the right move, but the fans aren't going to like it. This is a tough one to sell to the fans. Good luck, Chaim. I wish you the best in your future endeavors, which will happen, I can assure you. So the final piece that I want to talk about today is sort of a Boston adjacent topic. Yesterday I mentioned, or not yesterday, Monday I talked about the Mets adding Matt Adams as a depth piece. I want to talk about an available depth piece that I first mentioned a couple of weeks ago, and I first heard about and thought about listening to the Locked On Mets podcast, and it's former Boston Red Sox utility man Brock Holt, who remains a free agent at this point. Brock Holt is and should be the next target for the Mets. Excuse me, we don't know whether or not he's fielding major league offers for other teams, but the longer he stays available as a free agent, the more likely it is that the Mets can swing something for him. Maybe get him to agree to a minor league contract with an invite to spring training, and non-roster invite, something like that. If that works, the Mets absolutely should be extending that offer to Brock Holt, because he does in one roster spot what the Mets currently need 2 roster spots to do right now. Holt can back up every infield position and every outfield position. He can do what Jed Lowry does. Maybe actually 3 now that I think of it. Holt can do what Jed Lowry does, what Luis Guillorme does, and what Dominic Smith does as far as that backup outfield spot. Jake Marisnick is the backup center fielder. That's not going to change, right? But thinking about it this way, Holt can really, really be a skeleton key kind of guy on the bench for the Mets. And take up allow them to be a little bit more flexible with the other roster spots, because Holt can actually back up shortstop, he can back up third, he can back up second, he can back up first. He's played all these positions for the Red Sox as recently as last year. And not only that, he's done so okay. He's not an all-star defender at any position, but he's also not a butcher out there. He's not like, your J.D. Davis in left field kind of defense. So he can play the positions well enough, and he can hit. That's the part that I like the most about him. He's not a glove-first guy like Luis Guillorme seems to be. And I'm not taking anything away from Guillorme or even Jed Lowry if he's healthy and is able to play, whatever. All I'm saying is that in one package, the Mets could get a guy in Brock Holt who can fill a couple of these needs without having to clog up the bench with multiple roster spots to fill a couple of spots on as backups for different positions. So that's my closing thought for today. It's positive. I'm, again, trying to stay positive about the Cohen news. I'm not going to read into anything yet because it's too early and we don't really know. I'm going out of town tomorrow, so I will be missing the next few days. I will do my best to return on Monday to hopefully have a little more clarity on what the hell is going on with the Wilpons selling the team. If there's any other news that happens between now and then, you're not going to hear it from me because I won't be able to record anything. So until Monday, my fingers remain crossed. I remain cautiously optimistic, and I hope that Steve Cohen does whatever he needs to do to convince the Wilpons to get the hell out of the way and let someone else take over this team. So talk to you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met if you're not already doing so. And as always, let's go Mets.